Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a warm welcome to the Voice of the Cape's Matric online revision program today. And our subject is English with Muslimah Ismail Ali. And also to note that the revision programs are proudly sponsored by the Two Oceans Graduate Institute, an accredited online education provider where you can become a primary or a high school teacher in the privacy of your own home. Visit www.togi.ac.za for more information. And yes, also, I will be sharing the details of the Two Oceans Graduate Institute in the section down below where you can also contact them, and the number is listed in the description below, so you can do that. But let me invite our guest for today, who is no stranger to the Voice of the Cape, my former colleague, and she is got a very long, a background in terms of an educational background. But just as a means of introduction, we have Muslimah Ismail Ali, and she is a language tutor with 8 years experience. She's currently in Cairo, Egypt, where she is completing her classical Arabic at the Markaz Fajr for non-Arabic speakers. And she's also got a BA in Arabic and Islamic Studies, as well as being an educator in Islamic Studies, and of course being a public speaker with experience in media presentation. Assalamu alaikum, Muslima, and welcome. It's so nice to meet you virtually.
Walaikum salam. It is definitely a pleasure to see some familiar faces as well once again.
Wonderful. And obviously, this is not the first time you've also, contributed to the Matric Online Revision Program. A few years ago, we invited you on and, you presented some lessons as well. So, welcome back. But in terms of the subject of English, many grade 12 students, they're currently preparing for the trial examinations, for the preliminary examinations. Ahead of the final examinations at the end of the year. So I'm sure that it's quite nervy for anyone who is in grade 12. For those of us who has experienced this, we would understand fully just exactly, what is actually happening in the minds of grade 12 learners this year.
Mhm. Yes, of course. And as you mentioned, every year you guys do, and the Voice of the Cape does this revision program. But there's always something new that you learn each year, and there's always something new to learn. Whether it is that you learn from the student or the student learns from the person teaching. So there's always something new that comes up. And with language, we also find that it is progressing, and there's always something new being added to it. However,
Wonderful.
we won't be focusing on the additional words on social media today. I know that there's a lot of
Okay.
slang that has
New
jargon.
words being added. Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
speaking about this specifically.
Awesome. Now I'm going to hand over to you. Just in terms before you take us through the lesson, like just an overview of what learners can expect in today's lesson.
Okay. So first of all, what I had done is I had tried to merge papers one as well as paper three in order to get the most out of it. So when it comes to language, we can't necessarily do practice runs with you in the same way that you do in math or in physics and chemistry and so on,
Mm-hmm.
because with English it takes, and not only English but language in general, it takes quite some time to practice and to acquire skills within language. So what
Awesome.
we are going to do is we are going to go through different elements of exams that need to be taken note of, as well as also what could possibly assist you when you are writing and when you are answering. Comprehension is
Okay.
one thing, and that comes entirely from the student, which they have
Mm.
to practice and they need to go over vocab and so on. However, when it comes to questions and when it comes to structures, that is specifically where we can assist for you to get the most out of your answers.
Awesome. And then obviously at the end of the program, for any of the students who want to maybe reach out to you, I know that you also offer tutoring in these subjects in your private capacity. Then you can obviously share that details and we'll make that available. Students can also drop us a message as well. But without any further delay, I'm going to hand over to you to proceed with the lesson. I'm quite curious to also sit in. It's definitely going to take me back, but yeah, Bismillah, Muslima.
Okay, shukran so much, Khan. That's definitely a pleasure to be your company and the rest of the listeners and viewers to this video. So, as I mentioned, we are going to be merging papers one and paper three, meaning that paper one will be focused on comprehension and language skills. We're also going to focus on paper three with regards to our comprehension and writing skills. So we'll start with paper three first, specifically. And before we go into the depths of everything, we are going to focus on some writing tips. Since paper three is about writing and understanding your imagination and creativity within writing as well, it is also important to practice. So many people often say that no, that this person just has a knack for language. However, it's not necessarily you having a talent in a language. Language requires practice. And that's why I mentioned, as you can see in the second slide, it's right at the bottom, but we save the most important for last, which is practice, practice, practice. So the first one is short pieces daily. So in paper three, we have longer sections where you have to do transactional texts as well as essay writing. However, you sometimes we do feel like we don't have enough time, because if you have quite a few subjects, you aren't able to write long essays that are 2-3 pages long every day. So what I would suggest is you can get cards, maybe key cards, something that is similar to maybe this blue card over here. You can cut it into squares. You write different topics on. You write different topics on there, and you could maybe get a few pictures. So with those topics and pictures, you can put it in a box or something, and then every day you just choose one, a random one, something that you don't see. It has to be unseen in order to test your creativity efficiently. So what you do is you take one of that, then you can write a short piece, and a short piece meaning at least a half a page. So by doing that daily, you're doing sort of a mini essay practice, right? You do mini essay practice. At first, you just write a long text with just some information, a story, a description, revision. You can even write, whether it's on a different lesson, it will still be in English. Whatever it is, you just write a short piece. Thereafter, once you've reached a few, maybe 2 weeks of doing that, now you start doing it in a format, right? And we will go through the format with regards to essays and how to write an essay properly for the exam. So you can use that same format, but in your short piece. So this encourages creativity on the spot. It allows your brain to develop from a different sense other than just memorizing and writing in exams, which is what majority of students, us as students, do, right? Um, in addition to that, the second point is to read more. So I know that it is a very tedious process. We don't all like to read every day. Reading can be boring to some people. However, it is important for your vocabulary and language usage for you to read more. So I would encourage, instead of reading novels, I know that there are apps and sites where we read all of these short stories and little novels because it's exciting. But I would rather encourage constructive reading with regards to news articles that will also assist you with topics in the exam. Often we find that the topics in exam are connected to what is currently being being experienced in certain regions in the world or even in our own country. So I would encourage that so that you are an informed student as well. With that reading, you are also going to be exposed to proper language usage that you can also use when you write. So what you write is not necessarily parrot fashion, but it's learning from other written pieces to be implemented in what you are writing in your short pieces daily. Another thing you can do is also to listen and write. So for some of the students that are doing English home language, but at home they don't necessarily speak English. So you do English home language at school, but in the inside the house, people are speaking Afrikaans or they're speaking other languages. For this reason, you can listen to the radio, you listen to the news and write it down. Thereafter, you can look up those words that you are unsure of with regards to spelling and then see the correct way to spell it. So, in that way, because you aren't as exposed to English outside of class, you are being exposed in this way. So, that's what I would encourage. And then again, once again, I will mention practice, practice, practice. And practice doesn't always make perfect, but practice increases progress all the time. So I would always encourage that. Now, we are getting into the crux of things. So when we are focusing on paper 3 specifically, we do have transactional texts, we have letters, you write summaries, there's quite a few things that you do go through. However, we are focusing on the bulk of your marks in this paper, which would be your essay writing. Okay, so the different types of essays, as you can see on the screen, that we do have are narrative, descriptive, reflective, etc. So now when we go through these, sometimes you will have a question and they ask you to write a descriptive essay or whichever type of essay concerning the following topic, or you have a picture and they tell you to write a descriptive essay, right? Or a narrative or reflective essay with regards to whatever the topic may be that they give you. Now, when it comes to a narrative essay, this is one of the easiest. I would say it's easy for some because from the beginning of your writing practice in your scholarly years, you actually practice narrative earlier than all of the others. So you have the most practice with regards to narrative. And it just tells what it does is it basically just tells a story. It's nothing more than that. You will have the setting, the plot, characters. So when we do novels and when we do dramas in English and other languages, we usually have these characters, settings, plots, those type of themes within the novel. The same things apply when you are writing a narrative essay. So this is important to remember because when you are writing this, it's not only about your imagination and not only how wild your specific story is, right? It's not only about that, but structure and inclusion of important elements are very important for your mark allocation, right? So if you get the structure, if you get the format, then you are ready to go. Okay. So it is a story, meaning that there will be a sequence of events. This happened, then that happened, and that happened, and I was shocked, and I fell down on my knees and I drowned, and whatever it is that you are speaking about in your story, in your narrative essay, right? That's how it will be. It would either be in the first person or it would be in the third person where there is a narrator and you as the narrator are talking about whoever. So important things to remember here is that you need to introduce the characters, and you need to also introduce the setting. So what you do is make it fun, make it the way that you would want to read a story. When you hear something, so let's take ads on the radio, for example. When you listen to an ad, it tells a story. It uses specific words to paint a picture for you. The sounds in the background also contributes to the setting. When it comes to writing, you write all of that down. You speak about when you were outside, you speak about the whiff of fresh air you got as you stepped outside. You use detailed explanations for little things. And that would give the like the beautiful parts that you would like in the story, in the essay. So focus on details, focus on attention to detail. When you are writing the story, you need that person's imagination to also flow the same way as yours, because they can't see in your mind, but they're reading what's in your mind, right? Then the next thing further on is a descriptive essay. So with a descriptive essay, here it is what the name says. It is to describe, right? You describing an experience, okay? You describing an event or maybe something that happened. So what I can suggest is, if you have a picture, or you have a topic that they give you topics like the day I'll never forget. I can't believe I witnessed that. They'll give you short phrases like these or a picture. Then they ask you to write a descriptive essay. When you do this, make sure that you allow the reader to also imagine what's happening there. So when you're doing a narrative essay, you are including the entire setting and the characters and what happened in the story. But a descriptive essay is more about the first person perspective and details, extreme details. So you're explaining every single thing that happened there, right? So when you focus on that, always remember you can try it perhaps in a narrative essay at first, and then you move on to descriptive. So in that way, you are going to go through the steps, right? Now, just moving on with reflective essays. When you are writing a reflective essay, you are the writer. So this is about your reflection and what when something happened, what did it evoke in your mind, right? What do you feel about something? How did this situation make you feel? How did this person make you feel, or the experience? It is extremely subjective. It's all about you. So if you are conceited, this is the perfect essay for you, right? Then the next one that we do focus on, just to move on so that we can also get to the rest of the topics, is a discursive essay. This is not as common as the others, but it happens when you least expect it. I will say that. When you have discursive essays, sometimes you haven't been practicing it, or you don't really know what's going on, but then you just get it out of the blue, right? So what this does is a discursive essay. It comes from discourse. So what that means is that you are sharing ideas and thoughts, right? It presents both sides of an argument. So when you see discursive, you know that it is about thoughts, it's thoughts and ideas. Meaning the reason why I said it represents both sides of an argument, for example, is because when you have a specific thought or idea, people's thoughts vary, people's ideas and perceptions about things vary. So when you are going through the discourse, you do present both sides, right? And it's more of an informative type of essay where you discuss sometimes advantages and disadvantages of something and reasons for or against a view. So this can concern ideologies mainly, right? Then lastly, lastly is argumentative. So argumentative, as the word indicates, is when you are just see it as argue. So how you can see it is that you are trying to prove your point. Okay, so you are trying to convince the person reading this to agree with your opinion. So what you have to do in here, you use the present tense, of course, because it's almost as if you are arguing with that person. Then you start with your opinion, but don't necessarily state immediately that you disagree or agree with the topic, but just present the point of view within your introduction, right? Thereafter, you can give reasons to support that view and link them together. So there are different points and different portions that substantiate this idea or this opinion. Then what you do is you can even put that in different paragraphs after the introduction, right? You introduce it, thereafter you just state the different points that contribute to this argument in the paragraphs thereafter, right? And when you end this specific type of essay off, your conclusion has to be, well, not necessarily has to be, but it would be better for your conclusion to be very punchy. It needs to pack a punch, and it needs to be convincing. It needs to use rhetoric in a way that you are saying, it's almost as if you're saying, so is that thing not true? Or isn't it that way then? Right? So it needs to be like, it has to have the attitude of convincing, not not necessarily like in a vulgar manner, but it has to have persuasive language within your writing. Okay. Then the last one we have here is picture writing. And picture writing is more specifically with regards to when they give you pictures and you have to write on it, right? So this is entirely up to you. Majority of the time, you will find more more often that you don't even have restrictions with regards to the type of essay that you write when you have the pictures that they give you, right? Then moving on to the next slide. When we are busy writing and planning our essays, the most important thing is that planning also contributes to you not only having all of your thoughts in order, but it also has to relate to the reader what your thought process throughout this writing, this piece writing is. So that is how it contributes to your marks. So when we are at school, when we are in class, the most common manner of planning that we learn is mind maps. But I can tell you that the conventional mind map with the clouds and all of these things around it, it's not the only way of writing a mind map, right? What you need to make sure of in your planning is that you can either do clouds, you can do circles, you can do shapes. However you do it, just needs to convey your thought process, right? But so I do know this comment that I usually get where some students say, but my thought process isn't neat and my head is in the clouds and it's all over and they're not thinking straight. So obviously then they're planning. If I'm saying the planning should look like what's going on in their head, then it's going to be Yildiamaka. However, the point is to make another person understand all of the points that you have in your mind. So if it is that you know you have to write this long essay of 300 words, for example, right? But now I chose the type of essay I have, and I chose the topic I want to write, and I chose the topic. Now I come to planning. When I come to planning, I'm thinking of a million things at once. What you do is you start with the topic. Then you do broad points under that topic and what you want to focus on. If you have 10 things, you cannot fit you perhaps you can fit 10 things into 300 words, but if you want to be very descriptive, that's not going to work because it's too much. So what you then do is you choose exactly what you want. You do those broad things. If you are thinking and focusing on your first point, and now you come to your maybe third paragraph and you're like, I'm not sure what to do there yet. What you can do is come back to that. Focus entirely on one portion first. You go to the next, focus on that. The next, focus on that. What you have to do is train your mind to focus on something. And that is essentially what you have to do with planning. However, before exams, I would suggest you do the topic in a box idea, because when you are in exams, you do not have an entire hour just to think, because sometimes you can't write fast enough to make up all of that time. So work out your time carefully. Time yourself when you're writing at home. In the time leading up to writing your exam, within your practice, time yourself. Write and edit continuously. Then do planning with it, writing and editing as you go on. You get into it, and when you are at the 3 hour mark in your exam, you will not face the issue where I don't have any more time, because you've already trained your mind to think on the spot when you get any topic, and you've already trained your mind and yourself on how exactly you're going to get this done in a certain amount of time. Right. Then, of course, also write your final essay. So, moving on from that, when we come to paper one, so this is specifically concerning paper one right now. So I would suggest that everyone that is joining and you want to do revision, go over past papers. When you go over past papers, especially in languages, it helps your vocab, it increases your understanding of different words, it helps you understand what is required when they ask questions in a certain manner, which most of the time they will use very similar question words. Sometimes you will get a few that's thrown in there just to rattle you a bit, but it's not something you do not understand if you have gone through other things prior to this exam, right? So with regards to the question types, you get literal reorganization, you get in inference, evaluation, and appreciation question types, right? So before actually going through these types of questions, is that you also need to, or the question words and question types, you actually need to also understand why you are doing something. So why is it that I have to do this in paper one? Why is it that I have to do that in this question? Or I always get these questions. And sometimes There's also this notion that why am I sitting over here writing an exam, analyzing a cartoon? We don't see cartoons anymore. Like, what am I going to do with an advert? What? How does it benefit me? However, since we are seeing the social media revolution happening and it is constantly updating and upgrading, there are more manners of marketing. So if you find yourself one day, you never know what can happen. If you find yourself one day in the marketing space, or even if you aren't in the marketing space for work specifically, but you are in a workplace and marketing is connected to your job, it is important for you to understand what happens there. You don't need to know how to do every single thing, but you need to understand the purpose and the reason behind things and the connection to it, right? And that is why there's certain things in exams that you don't necessarily use in everyday life per se, but it will come in handy in the workplace, right? So let's just focus on quickly the question types, as I mentioned. So literal is what is used in paper one. So this is quite straightforward. When we have literal questions, they are asking you something clearly. You will find it in a text, or you will actually just see a word. Sometimes they even ask you for a word in the text. So it's very straightforward. It's given clearly, and it is in the text. You need to extract it from the comprehension perhaps they give you in paper one or in the exam in general, right? So what they would do in literal questions is they would say name, characters, things, places, so and so. They'll ask you to name things, write down information, then give reasons, right? Or they will say state the reason, give the reason, state the facts, give. So it is the same, right? It's just two different words for the same thing. Then they can ask you to describe something, or just identify the reason for something, give the reason, state the reason, is all three exactly the same thing. However, they're just using different words. So don't think that there's like a hidden agenda. Sometimes it's just as straightforward as it seems. Right? Reorganization. Right? So with reorganization is where you have to bring together pieces of information in a specific manner. So, but they will ask it from you in a certain way. So the first one of the ways they ask you to do reorganization is in summaries. So you have to summarize the main points or ideas, right? We could go through, so I can give lessons on summaries and all of these things in detail. However, that will be a different lesson on its own, right? Then when we go to grouping elements and also giving outlines, that is also forms of reorganization type of questions. So all you need to do there is when you give an outline, write down just the main points without lots of details. When you're grouping things that are alike or things that connect, you just put that together, right? And then summarizing, you're just writing down main points and ideas, okay? Inference is the questions where you read the text, you understand what they mean, but now you have to use information that's given in there and put or write down your interpretation of that piece or of that word or of that cartoon, article, advertisement, whatever it is, right? So this is where inference comes in, okay? So you need to apply yourself when it comes to this. So it would be explain something. They would just say explain the link between July and August, or they will say explain this within, they will say explain something within this context, right? So if you explain just the meaning of the word, it will be different to explaining something in its context, right? Comparing is when you have the similarities as well as differences. That it's as simple as that. Just similarities, differences, compare, right? Then in this, in inference, they'll also ask you what, how, true or false questions as well. You would have to sometimes choose correct answers, complete sentences, quote things. The quoting is also to prove your answer. So when they ask quote, there will usually be a question prior to that, or it will be in the same question where you get marks for your answer as well as evidence from the text, right? Then evaluation, going through evaluation specifically. This is when you need to place a judgment on something, right? So after analyzing a situation, by analyzing, what I mean is you're looking through the situation and you formulate conclusions and you formulate your answers as in the previous questions or types of questions that I mentioned. But now what you're going to do is, majority of the time when you do evaluations, this would be holistic topics, right? So in order for you to evaluate something, it won't be something simple. It would be either a topic that has a substance, or it would be maybe a statement, or it would be even just an article, or anything that really has quite a bit of meaning to it, or you can maybe interpret it in different manners. So when it comes to this, you have to discuss. Discuss is you mention all of the information and then you reach a conclusion, right? But what I mean by all the information is that rewrite the whole thing there, because that is I know that's like I don't know if it's supposed to be like a smart hack, but it's not actually smart, unfortunately, if you thought it was. But if you, when you discuss, you mention the main points, you mention the important points, and that is the point that is influential for the conclusion. You after you make a conclusion, right, after discussing or mentioning the important points, right, then evaluation would also be what you agree or don't agree with. Then lastly, appreciation. You can say appreciation. Some people say appreciation as well. So this is with regards to your emotive response, right? So when what happens in the text and how the text is written, you will have a specific response to how that thing was said or what was said. It's the same as when you're having a conversation, and it might be sometimes you are having a conversation with someone, they say something out of the blue and you are offended. However, that person doesn't realize that you are taking offense, or they didn't think you would take offense, because they don't understand what happened to you prior to that moment, right? So the same when you are reading, you have experiences within your life, within your lifetime, and based on those experiences, you form emotional responses to things, right? So in appreciation questions, then they would ask, how would you feel if this were to happen to you? Or how would you feel if someone had said this to you, right? Then it would also be your responses, discussing your responses, how you feel about something or about someone. And then the meaty part of appreciation questions is when you get advertisements. So appreciation, it appeals majorly to advertisements. So they focus here on the diction, the style of writing, figurative language and dialogue, and it's just in general the way something is in your perspective, right? So there you will discuss how the writer uses these different elements in order to to have a specific type of response. So in advertisements, an advertisement is posed in this way for you to respond in a way. Sometimes you actually think that the marketing team or whoever it was that did a specific advertisement did it in a way did it in a way, in a specific way, because they thought it would appeal to you. But then everyone is just going haywire about it. But the fact that everyone is talking about it could have been the motive behind them writing it or styling it in that manner. So, with regards to that, this is where you analyze. Okay, this is why they did it that way. This is why they did it that way, and this is very important for us to understand also because when you write NBTs, which I know grade 12s also write, when you do NBTs, when you understand the reason for all of these different types of things in your question paper and you understand the psyche behind it, then it would actually assist you in your in some of your questions within those NBTs as well. Because when they test your knowledge in different elements of language, right? Then they will actually see your understanding of things or how you think, more importantly, right? So that is just an extra thing, specifically with regards to paper one in connection with the MBTs as well. So that also concludes the summary for English specifically. And I wanted to mention with regards to past papers and practicing all of the different elements I have mentioned, you can visit essay question papers, or you can visit the Department of Basic Education's website, and you can look for all of the past papers, go through them. You can, it's easy to get the answers. And if you do need assistance, you can contact me via email. If you do contact the radio, I'm sure they will share my email with you. And that is if you do need additional assistance with regards to language.
Wonderful, Muslima. Does that there conclude your session for today? Yeah, I think there's a bit of a delay with the
Yes.
connection.
So that is the end of
Yeah,
the
so oh, wonderful. Okay, so yes, definitely we will make your details available to anyone who'd like to reach out to you, and perhaps they might have questions they wish to ask you. That information will be available from our reception desk. That's the Voice of the Cape, and the number is 021 4423500, or email reception@vocfm.co.za. Well, Muslima, shukran so much for a very informative session. I've definitely learned a lot sitting in, just watching you take us through this lesson, and I'm making dua that the students who have been viewing this lesson will also be benefiting from it. But also to remind our viewers to please like and share this particular video as much as you can, but also to remind you that the Voice of the Cape's Matric Online Revision Program is kindly sponsored by the Two Oceans Graduate Institute, an accredited online platform where you can become a primary or a high school teacher by studying in the privacy of your own home. Remember, you can visit www.togi.ac.za or call 021 8297015. Well, that there is a wrap of our segment for today, and we look forward to having you back, Muslima. I'm sure you have a lot more to share, inshallah. But all the best to you. May you have a blessed day further. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
inshallah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.